I was working at Old Navy. I was the maintenance man. I would work the floor shift. So like I would go in at 4:35. I would clean the store, bathrooms, all that. And I'll be honest, this might be a little like graphic, but now I understand why they like that like little like thing on the side of the women's bathroom. I've never smelled nothing worse every single day. But I had to clean the whole bathroom, clean the whole store. And and then when I was done with that, I would go onto the floor and do like a floor shift. I worked on the register. I would help people, like on the floor. And it's funny because my manager when I worked there was like, "Why do you still do the maintenance? Like you're so good on the floor. Like people really be coming in here asking for you." And I'm like, "Well, I'm just trying to do whatever I can to make money. And whenever we would have like overnight shifts, I would take them." Again, I always knew that I was destined for more, but I knew that it was gonna come through doing something. One day, my aunt called me and she was like, "I work at this community center." And I had been there before because my cousin Kwani was there as a sex educator, so I went there to visit. She was like, "Yo, like, do you want a job? I think you'd be, your grandmother owns a daycare. I know that you're great with kids, and I know that like you have a good vibe to you, and so I think that the kids would probably love you here." And yeah, from that summer, I just needed something that made me feel like alive. And I think being around those kids made me feel like from the first week of me being there, like I had my group and then I had all the people who worked there. But then like that's when I met like Isaiah and Pedro and Sid and the whole Jelly fam and all that. And then you're going to the games and Coach Rose and like you start to think about like I remember my basketball days in the BRC and playing basketball and like what that felt like to want to play basketball all day and have somebody there and supporting you. And I remember like I used to bet with Pedro like, all right, yo, like you say you're the best shooter in the city, like I'll give you $5 for every three you make. And I remember the first game that I told him that, I think he made like 7 threes. I remember being like, and the first thing he did was come to collect, right? Naturally, right? Pedro came right to me to collect, like, and then it became like a thing, like, yo, bro, like every time you got me, and so you could tell that he would be in. I mean, obviously he was still playing his game, but then you started to realize that like the kid really can shoot, and so it's like I'm gonna have to figure out a new thing. And then now it's like he telling Isaiah and Isaiah like, what if I get X amount of assists? And then Sid like, what if I get X amount of dunks? And you see him trying to dunk on everybody. And it became crazy. But like just I don't know, the whole atmosphere of it all just kind of created a space for me that I felt it just felt safe. And it felt like I knew that I could ingratiate myself into the community and be a role model because it just happened that way. They just kind of gravitated to me, and I took a liking of them, and the rest kind of really took care of itself because I can walk into Milbank right now and have a place that I know that is home, and it also allowed for for me to call Harlem home because I've interacted with so many families and so many kids and walking down the streets of Harlem and kids running away from their parents or seeing me on the street and like, oh, I gotta say hi to Coach Jeff. And like people letting their kids like walk up to me in the middle of the street. And like it also kind of gave me this like idea that I gotta be mindful of how I'm carrying myself. Um and like, I, it feels weird because sometimes you like, you think about like Charles Barkley, like I'm not a role model. I don't view myself as such, but I also know that I just want to be tangible, right? Like I want to make sure that these kids know that like, all right, if I need to call him, I need to be around or be present. I can like he's gonna be there for that, and so you know, I don't really say role model just because we have such real conversations. Especially like as kids get older and they start to ask real questions, it doesn't feel like a role model anymore. It feels more like more like a brother or uncle or like a really close friend. And I think that that's super important to like be able to have a kid ask you, what should I be doing? How can I, because I don't, during a time in my life, I don't think I really had somebody to have those conversations with.